All right, Coach Lee here. As you can see, I'm a mess. I just got back from an FTP test, and they are brutal, bloody affairs. A couple things I just want to say about FTP is that when you're doing a test, one, they are brutal, bloody affairs. I got crap all over me. I even took my helmet off for this thing, jersey off, just on the side of this mountain going up there. I must have looked like a fool. But the biggest thing that you have to realize about these FTP tests is that you are not your FTP. You are not your FTP. You are not your FTP. Back when this metric was, really conceived of, some people, not all people, but some coaches really latched onto this as a marketing gimmick, right? It's great if we just have one number to understand you as a cyclist, and then we just train that one number. Wow, what a marketing gimmick, right? And so then it has, over the years, you have the great coaches who use FTP. They take it with a grain of salt. They take it and look at it and as, in the entire, one piece of the entire puzzle. And then you have those other coaches that just were like FTP, 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 FTP. Right? I'm not that coach. You are not your FTP. FTP is crucial to get your zones dialed in and to understand where you are as an athlete. That's the most important thing. FTP does not go up day after day, month after month, week after week, year after year in this linear fashion. It does not. It goes up and down. It can go up and down just on the surface that you're on. So if you're on gravel, it's going to go down rather than tarmac, right? It's going to go down if you're on gravel. It's going to go up and down. Are you having, there's a lot of stress at work? It could go down. Not getting along with family members, it could go down. Getting along with family members, it could go up. Time of day, in the morning, it could go down. At the evening, it could go up, right? It goes up during the day. It goes up and down during the week. It goes up and down during the month. What I like to do for athletes, and this is typical, we build them up, we build them up, we build them up, and then they race for several months. It could go down. It very well could go down depending on the type of racing that you're doing. It could go down over those months during your own season where you're out there racing as hard as you can, right? To get your best FTP, you have to be doing super specific work that might not be in line with your event specificity. So that's really important. But a couple things, that happened today is that I nailed it. I had not done an FTP test in a while. I'm kicking off a really strong 2-month training block. So I had to make sure that all my zones are dialed in. And that is one of the most important things to understand about FTP. Your zones. When you get done with your FTP, it's not, I hit this number. When you get done with your FTP, it's, now I know where my zones are. I really know where my zones are. Training by zones is crucial. If we, knowing that tempo is actually tempo, endurance is actually endurance, sweet spot's actually sweet spot. Knowing that is crucial, and you have to dial that in. If your FTP goes down, you gotta suck it up. And just be happy, ecstatic that your zones are dialed in correctly. That's the most important takeaway with the FTP. Do we work on it? Do we build your threshold? Absolutely. But if you're coaching with me, I build your zone too, your endurance, your threshold, your tempo, your VO2. We work all of your zones, and they all influence each other. Let's break down what I did today. So today I went out there and, so this is a big thing, so I'm that guy that was for years just FTP, right? Until my eyes are crossed and, but I could just gin up my FTP, make me have a great FTP, but then, I can't ride a century. I can't slam a century as hard as I want to, even though I had this massive FTP. So I really redid things in the past couple of years in terms of my training, in terms of my thinking, and really understanding the physiology and science of threshold power training, which is essentially what we're doing. So I went out there and, knowing and accepting that FTP goes up and down. Accepting is the crucial part. I went out there and I didn't try to overdo it, right? So I looked at my history. I understood what the temperature was outside. I understood what the humidity was outside. It's hot. It's wet. Both of those, for a guy like me, dropped my FTP through the floor, all right? So I got up as early as I could, got some calories in me, and was out there on the road at first light, and and did the best I could. But knowing where my FTP is, looking at my history, accepting that my FTP is going to be low today because of the climate, the environment, the environmental conditions. Also that I have not been doing any kind of 20-minute intervals in the past past month or so, 6 weeks. So I take all that, I look at the history, and I know my FTP is going to be lower. So that's the most important thing. Accept that. So I start off at 280 watts just to see how I feel. I'm out there, 280 watts, feeling good, right? And so I slowly tick that up to 290 at the end, all right? That's very important. If I would have started this day out at 290, I would have not ended at 290. I would have probably ended at 270, 275, something like that. So that's me and how dialed in I am, that if I'm 5 to 10 watts off when I start, I will collapse. Okay, that's very important in understanding me. So here's my effort. At 20 minutes, I take the best 20-minute time. So if you're at the end of your FTP test and you got another minute, go 21 minutes, and I will take your best 20 minutes. And that's actually what I did. I got to the end of the 20 minutes. I was feeling good, so I just kept rolling on. And this is my best 20 minutes. And you can see how my efforts is going up. VI, variability index, this means I was super smooth going up there, that my normalized power and my average power were just about exactly the same. I was super smooth. I was maximizing my energy resources. I wasn't surging. I wasn't 1 minute 400 watts, the next minute 200 watts, then 400, then 200. I just rode this thing up at 280 and then slowly ticked it up to 290. So pacing was perfect. That's 159. That's it's a sad thing. The older you get, that just drops, right? It just 159 for an FTP test. I used to be in the 180s for an FTP test, and then the older I get, then I'm down in the 170s, and then I'm down in the 160s, and so now it looks like I'm going to be down in the 150s. That's just that's life. My cadence was low. This was up the side of a mountain. The cadence was low, and that's an interesting thing. And so, my cadence is super low going up the side of a mountain. I'm actually using more muscles. So this FTP is really only good for climbing, right? So if I was going to the beach to do some kind of beach race or something like that where everything is flat, I would absolutely want to do my FTP test on a flat surface, right? I want you, when you do the FTP test, you want to replicate the conditions of your racing. So if you're gravel, I've got a great 3.5 mile climb, a gravel climb. If I'm doing gravel racing, I'll go out and do my FTP test on the gravel climb. So you got to replicate the conditions of your event. Average speed, nothing. EF, efficiency factor, that's fantastic. That's a great metric. It's all about watts per heartbeat. How many watts can you do per heartbeat? I love this metric. So 1.8, I know my history for testing, and that's basically where I tap out at about 1.8, 1.9. I have some clients 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, but it's highly individualistic, and it's really, you have to compare data. So to understand that number, you go back and you look at your other FTP efforts to understand, are you more efficient at what you're doing out there through the season? And that number goes up and down as well. As you peak for your races, we want that number to be super efficient. But, when you're in your off season, especially when you take a couple weeks off in October, something like that, when you come back, that number is going to be low, 1.6 for me, 1.6. And then it's going to trend up as I get back into training throughout the season. All right. And then balance 50-50. That's it's really good. That's typically what I do. All right, guys, so that's breaking down an FTP test. There's a lot more that we can talk about this, but, I guess the biggest takeaway is that you are not your FTP. FTP is not the end-all, be-all. The most important thing that you really want to understand with FTP is where to set your zones. And that's the most important thing. That's what you need to get fired up. I'm going to go set my zones right now, and they're going down, okay? So I have not been doing dedicated work. I've been racing, for the past couple months, and my FTP has gone down. So I got to suck it up, and I have got to lower my zones. All right, take care, everybody.